Hi, it's time for another verb of the day. Today's verb is beguile. Let's take a look at some of the definitions or ways that we use this verb. The first way you might hear beguile used is to mean to charm or enchant someone. Now, enchant might also be a bit unfamiliar. You can think of this as sort of filling with great delight. This verb tends to have a very positive meaning when used in this way. So, someone is being described as being charmed or being enchanted. A second way you might hear beguile used is to mean to trick someone into doing something. And sometimes there's a bit of a connection to the first definition with this second meaning. So someone might use their charm in order to convince someone to do something or trick them into doing something else. A third way you might hear the verb beguile used is to mean to help pass time in a pleasant way or in a pleasant manner. You should know that beguile is a regular verb. To make the progressive form of this verb, we're going to drop the E and then add ing to form beguiling. The past tense and participle forms of this verb are made by adding D since this verb already ends in an E. Our base verb, beguile, ends in a voiced L sound. So our past tense ending is going to make a D sound, but we're not going to add an extra syllable as we say this. So the past tense and participle forms are pronounced beguiled, beguiled. Okay. Now, there aren't any additional phrasal verbs that we need to learn with this particular verb. And so we're going to move on, and you might be looking at our verb of the day and thinking like, huh, this is unusual. I'm not sure if I've heard this word used or seen it used while I'm reading. And this was actually a viewer's request. A viewer asked that we talk about some words that aren't as commonly used in 2021 as they have been historically. And so beguile is one of these words. And what I've done today is found some examples of this verb being used in some different ways for us to kind of examine. And I'm going to note that most of these examples I found are quite old. So let's look at the first one. My first example sentence here says, "You were beguiled into some eating house." And this sentence is a quotation from the book The Rome Express. It was published in 1901, so the sentence is 20 years old. It is an example of the passive voice in the simple past tense. So we can see that past form were, and then we see our participle here. Past form of be, and then the participle form of the verb. Eating house is an old way to mention a restaurant, in case you're curious about that. So in this particular book, I think it's kind of a mystery, and so I believe this is an example of the trick, right? Someone was charmed into going into a particular restaurant, is essentially what this sentence is saying. The second example I have here comes from a poem. And the poem says, "I love thee, oh, I love thee, with fervor deep and wild. The beauty's charm most strangely my spirit hath beguiled." And so I recognize that there might be a few words here, a little new and different for you. And I'm going to point out hath is what's called kind of an archaic form. This word is no longer commonly used in the English language. Today, we use the word has. So essentially, this last line, my spirit has beguiled, is what's being said. So this is an example of our present perfect. And this is going back to that first meaning of charm and enchantment. Someone is so in love, right? They are filled with this joy and happiness. The third example sentence I have here, the cast, visuals, and the storyline will beguile audiences. Here's an example of our simple future tense. This comes from the review of a play. right? So might be familiar with journalists and critics. It's their job to take in art. So now we tend to see this with movies and television shows, and we still see it some with plays as well. So they watch and they point out what's really good about this particular production, or maybe what's not so good, as they make recommendations to people. You should go see this, or you shouldn't. Okay. So again, I don't think this is a word you're going to see very frequently, but hopefully these real examples give you an idea of how this word is used. And if you're in a literature class and maybe reading older stories, older books, older poems, I think there's a good chance you will encounter this word. Now, something you are more likely to hear is related to our verb. It's the adjective form beguiling, and this means charming or enchanting. And it can sometimes mean that someone is being charming in order to deceive or be deceptive. So, kind of back to that second definition, in order to trick someone. But not always. Again, sometimes it's just this first part, the charming and enchanting description. And that's what you're going to see in another real world example. This came from another review of a play, and it specifically mentions an actor, Kathleen Turner. Sentence says here, Kathleen Turner oozes charisma in this beguiling production. So, this person, as they watched this particular play, found it charming. They found it enchanting. So they're complimenting the production. Thanks so much for watching today's video. I hope you have a great day.